Onto your markets now. Asian stock markets ended the session in positive territory today. This followed positive cues from Wall Street overnight, with most of the major markets in the region closed for the Lunar New Year, including China, Hong Kong, Singapore and South Korea. The Nikkei share average ended the session up just over 1%. US markets rebounded on the back of a reversal in the losses made in artificial intelligence-linked tech stocks in the previous session. Nvidia, which lost close on 17% on Monday, regained nearly 9% of its value, while Microsoft advanced by 2.9% ahead of its release of its earnings report. Meanwhile, market players will be focused on what the US Fed decides on interest rates later this evening. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up 0.31%. The S&P 500 rose by 0.92%, while the Nasdaq Composite Index gained just over 2%. So for now, we see that the all-share index is up 0.5% at 84,863 index points. The rand is trading at 18.70 against the US dollar, 19.46 vis-a-vis the euro, and 23.33 against the British pound. Gold is trading at $2,760 an ounce, while platinum is trading at $940 an ounce, and Brent crude oil is trading at $75.75 a barrel. Well, for more on the markets, let's cross now to Viv Govender, who's standing by. Thanks very much for joining us, Viv. So the artificial intelligence-linked stocks and others reversed some of Monday's losses, but does this really change the fact that the Chinese AI startup that is DeepSeek is going to be causing a lot of sleepless nights for executives in the United States?
I think that was a bit overblown. I think some of the technology that DeepSeek had created was innovative, but I think it's more a case of we expected the Chinese to basically fall behind relatively quickly once the new level chips come out. The Chinese basically are doing these things so cheaply and so efficiently because they've been banned from the US chip market, from the global chip market rather. And that means that they don't have access to the next generation of chips in any real capacity. And so when we do have these new generations coming out, yes, the Chinese may be more efficient, but they're not going to be able to compete with like the Grok 3s and the ChatGPT 5s, etc., that are going to be coming out in the next year or so.
So market players will be switching their attention today to the US Fed. It doesn't really seem clear what their move will be, but we know, for example, that Donald Trump has been pushing for central banks, especially the Fed Reserve, to cut rates further.
Yeah, look, I think it's more likely than not that they're going to hold the US inflation rate has not kind of come down substantially. I think there are fears around, inflation returning, especially when we consider the idea of tariffs coming to play over the next year or two. Donald Trump has come out in the last couple of days and talked about increasing tariffs on places like, for things like, for instance, potato chips as well as pharmaceuticals, and which obviously is going to be inflationary because tariffs do increase costs. So we are seeing, some fears of that. Also, I think there's a bit of an antagonistic position between the Fed and the president at the moment. The president normally doesn't come out and ask for rate cuts like Trump is doing at the moment. So that's one thing. And if the Fed basically was to succumb to that and basically cut rates, it might show that they lack independence and might be, negative for their reputation going forward.
No, that's a good point that you make. So here at home, the Cabinet Lekhotla is happening later this afternoon, and there are some worries about rumbles in the GNU around certain policies being signed into law. How much of a concern is that, and does the recent rand weakness have anything to do with that, or is just about dollar strength?
I think there is some truth to the fact that the rand has been, affected by the GNU rumblings. We did see a little bit of strength coming through when the DA came out and said they were, committed to the GNU. So I think there is an effect coming through. I am a bit worried about it. I think there are fundamental differences between the ANC and the DA, which are the two main parties in the GNU. And if we do see the Government of National Unity do break up, I do think that we would see a negative effect on the rand, especially. Because if you look at some of the confidence that returned to the country in the last year or so, in the stock market, in the currency, etc., a lot of that had been built on the idea that we are turning to, a coalition government would have, better efficiency, more transparency in terms of some of the issues that have been plaguing the country in the past.
Yeah. So what's your outlook for the local stock market? Do you see valuations rising, or that will, of course, depend on what happens with our local politics?
I think when it comes to the different parts to it, I mean, for instance, NASPAs, which is obviously a process which are big parts of our economy, our stock market, not our economy, but our stock market, that depends, I think, on what's going to be the situation between the US and China. I think there is possibility that Donald Trump does make a deal with the Chinese, which could be positive for those companies, so they'll be impactful. Also, with regards to China, I think the commodity sector might be, help recover if the Chinese and the US do come to some kind of arrangement. And it's very vulnerable, of course, to those international pressures. But I think the local economy needs to see growth improve, and I don't think that's going to happen in the near term. I mean, we are seeing forecast for this year of below 2%, which is not enough to get the local economy jump started. Things like financials and the retail stocks, etc., doing significantly better.
All right, Viv, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insights as always. That was Viv Govender. He's a portfolio manager at Swiss